Indicator 20.2, we're factoring quadratics, and you'll notice in the little parentheses it says where a is equal to 1. Here in a second, I'll tell you where the a is in the equation. And then Monday, we will look at ones that get just a tiny bit harder, where a is something greater than 1. But for today, we're going to keep it very simple and very basic. So a couple of just basic things first. Let me give myself a blank screen here. So the first thing is, what is a quadratic expression or a quadratic equation? Okay, so helps if I turn that on. So it's ax squared plus bx plus c. And this is considered an expression because there's no equal sign. Okay, if I were to put equals 0, now it's a quadratic equation. Okay, but for right now, we're just going to worry about quadratic expressions. Okay, we'll factor them in this indicator, then we'll use that skill next indicator to solve them, and that's when we see an equal sign. Okay, but for right now, we're just looking at quadratic expressions. And so in today's lesson, I said that a is going to be a 1, right? And when a is a 1, do we really ever see anything there? So here's an example of a quadratic expression where a is a 1. It would look like this. Okay, everybody write that down. That's a quadratic expression where a has a value of 1. It's not there, but it's there. What's my b value? -2. What's my c value? -3. That's always the spot for each one of those, okay? Now, this should look familiar. You guys have seen this, but it was your answer, okay? And remember I said that what is factoring the opposite of? I talked about it the other day. Yeah, distribution. So if you guys recall, back in indicator 18, you saw this, right? And you knew that you had to do FOIL. And so we would take x times x and then x times -3. And that would give us x squared. And then x times -3 is -3x. And then you would go, the 1 would go the inside terms and then the last. And so you would have 1 plus x would be plus 1x, and 1 times -3 is -3. And then we learned that we had to combine these two middle terms. And so our final answer would be x squared minus 2x, because -3 and +1 is -2, minus 3. Okay? So we learned already how to distribute and get from the factored version, that this right here is the factored version. Okay, you learned how to get from the factored version to the simplified expression. Now we're going to be going from the simplified expression backward to the factored version. Okay, so we're just doing the opposite. Now, if it takes a minute to kind of connect it, but the activity we did yesterday where we were finding the two numbers, right, that worked, where if you multiplied them together, you got one thing, but if you added them together, you got another. The reason that's important is because if you look at this number and this number, okay, if I were to tell you or ask you what two numbers add together to give you -2, but multiply to give you -3, your answer would be 1 and -3. Okay, and you need, if you were just looking at this, which is what we're going to be doing today, and you need to know what two numbers work to multiply together to give you C, but you need them to add together to give you B, okay? Because when you combine your two like terms in the middle, right, they need to add up to your middle term or your B term, okay? So what we're going to be looking in the exercise we did yesterday is that you're going to be looking for two numbers, because those are the two numbers that are going to go in your binomial answer. You're going to be looking for the two numbers that satisfy the adding and the multiplying, so that when you put them in your answer form, which is always going to be like this, a binomial and a binomial, and you're always going to have x times some, or x plus or minus some number, and then x plus or minus some number. Your sum numbers, right, The number that's going to go here and the number that's going to go here are going to be the two numbers that satisfy that puzzle, that we needed to find the two numbers that work for both. Got it? Got it, Hayden? Are you all right? All right. I know it's early. Okay, so these are super simple. And the reason is because you can skip a step. Monday, we'll go back and we'll kind of fill in the blank of what step we're missing. But I'm just going to kind of keep it simple today. I'm not going to go into the filler work, okay? So what do I mean by that? Let's look at some examples. I'm going to erase this really quickly so that I've got room to write here in just a minute. All right, so let's go back up to our first example. And I'll show you the steps to solve this. Okay, it's very, 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 very simple. Step one is you are going to make a factor sum table, and I'll show you what I mean by that here in just a minute, okay? So step one is a factor sum table. Okay? Step two is to find your winning factors or your winning numbers. And in this case, today, this is really nice, all right? Step three is to write your answer, because today's are really, really easy as far as being able to skip that middle step. So for today, that's it. Factor sum table, find your winning numbers that satisfy both, and then you write your answer. So what do we mean by a factor sum table? For every single one of these on your homework, right next to it, you're going to give me a little factor sum table, and we're going to put F for factor and S for sum. Now, how do you find the numbers that you need to fill in if you're here? So for the factor side, we need whatever A times C is. So for your F, I'll put it right here. It really should have gone right there in like 1A. Okay, so 1A. For your F equals A times C. And in this case, what are all of our A's? They're ones. It's really nice, right? So if you think of your F is your A times your C, that's your F, okay? So right above the F in your factor sum table, I want you to write positive 80, because that's what your factor part of your puzzle is going to be. And then the next thing you're going to need is you're going to need your sum. And your sum is always your center number, which in this case is positive 18. And we know that signs matter, so make sure you know it's positive 80 and positive 18. That's what you're searching for. Now, it might pop right out at you, and if it does, start there. That's great. Save yourself work. What are the winning factors here? Anybody? Multiply to give you 80. That's what factors mean. Sum is 18. 10 and 8, okay? But let's say you don't know. You're not sure. You always start kind of from ground level, all right? If I take factors of 80, I know that whoops, my pen shut off again. I know that 1 times 80 is 80. So in my factor sum table, I'm going to write 1 times 80. And then on my sum side, I'm going to add 1 plus 80, and I'm going to get 81. Now, those are not my winning numbers. Okay, so if, say, I still don't know, and I know that 80 is even, so 80 can be divisible by 2. And I know that 2 times 40 is also 80. And I know that 2 plus 40 is 42. Still not my winning numbers that I'm looking for. My factors are right. I'm multiplying what I need to multiply, but I'm not getting my sum I need. So I look and see, is 80 divisible by 3? It's not. Okay, so I go to 4. And if you're ever not sure, calculator, 80 divided by 3 doesn't come out even. It's not a factor. 80 divided by 4, right? So 4 times 20. 4 plus 20 is 24. Now, I need to get to 18. I was at 81, then I got to 42, then I got to 24. I can tell I'm getting closer, right? But I still don't know. Now, obviously, this was one that should jump out at you. You should be able to skip all of this and just say, oh, it's 8 and 10. You put 8 and 10 in your factor sum table. You do not need to do all of this every single time. The only time you need to start with 1 in the number, 2 in the number, 3 in the number is if you don't know and you're trying to find your winning factors. If your winning factors jump out at you, fill those in right away. All right? So 4 and 20 didn't work. So I know 80 is divisible by 5. So I do 5 and what is that, 12? No, 1, 3, 16, right? All right, 16. 5 and 16 multiply to give me 80. And 5 plus 16 is 21. I'm getting closer, but I'm still not to 18. 80 is not divisible by 6. 80 is not divisible by 7. So I go to the next one. 8 and 10. 8 times 10 is 80. My sum, 8 plus 10, 18. Woo, woo, woo. There you go. There's your winning factors. Circle them. Okay? Now, you're ready to write your answer. This is the beauty of the ones that start with a 1, right? Here's your answer. Remember, your answer is a binomial. So it is bracket. Is this an X? You got to watch your variables. In this particular problem, it's an N, right? So don't get lazy and always think X. So it's a single N. Now, my two factors. I needed positive 80 and positive 18. So I used positive 8 and positive 10. That means this is going to be a plus 8 and a plus 10. That's your answer. And if you did it right, you should be able to use FOIL. And when you do first times first, you get n squared. When you do the outside, you get 10n. The inside is 8n. What do they add up to? 18n. That's your middle term. And then when you do last, 8 times 10, you should get positive 80. So if you FOIL, you should get back to your original expression. Okay? Now, this seemed like a lot because I went through the whole process of finding the winning factors. Your winning factors might jump right out at you. If they do, wonderful. Don't fill in your factor sum table with a bazillion choices if you know right away what your winning one is. All right? So let's look at number 2. And I'm going to erase this just to give me a little bit of space here, since you guys have already written it down. All right. So first things first, factor sum table. Okay, F and S. Above the F, what do my factors need to multiply to be? Anybody? Chloe, what do my factors need to multiply to be? Remember, factors are 1 times C. Well, A times C, but in this case, A is always 1. Negative 80. I'll make sure I'm putting the negative there because signs matter. Okay, what do they need to add up to? What's my sum? Positive 2. Positive 2. All right, does it jump right out at you? What is it? Does anybody know? Yes. Okay, so I go positive 10, positive 10 and times negative 8. Positive 10 and negative 8 do multiply together to give me negative 80 because a positive and a negative is negative. And if I add, right, 10 plus or minus 8, I get positive 2. Now, you got to watch your signs here. I needed my sum to be a positive 2, so I made the 10 he made the 10 positive rather than the 8 positive. So you make whichever one positive that gives you the sum that you need, whether your sum is negative or positive. So you just have to watch your signs. All right, so the winning factors jumped right out. There they are, positive 10 and negative 8. You go to your answer, which is bracket. What's my variable here? It's an M, right? A single M plus 10, a single M minus 8, and that's your answer. Now, you have to be careful here that it's a single M. And the reason it has to be a single M is because if you refoil it, your M times M gives you your M squared. So I have, and don't do this, don't even write it down. I have a lot of people do this, M squared plus 10, M squared minus 8, right? But if you refoil that, M squared and M squared is M4. So you've doubled your M's that you need. So don't do that, okay? It's a single M and a single M because we need them to multiply it back together to give us our M squared, okay? All right, let's look at this one. Factor sum table. My factors, my sums. What do my factors need to multiply together to be? Caden, what do my factors need to be? Okay. Good. Well, nope, other way around. Flip-flop that. Your factors are the outside. So factor is positive 20. Sum is the center. Try to kind of remember that little memory mnemonic. Sum is center. So sum is negative 12. Now, right off the bat, if I need a positive number, but I need them to add up to negatives, what do my signs have to be? Two negatives. The only way to multiply to give me a positive, but add up to a negative is two negatives, okay? So I know my winning factor is going to be negative and negative. Does it jump right out? Yes. Negative 10 and negative 2. Good. Negative 10 times negative 2 is positive 20. Negative 10 plus negative 2 is negative 12. So those are my winning factors. I circle them. I go over to write my binomial. In minus 10, whoops, let me just erase that. That got ugly. In minus 10 and in minus 2. And again, FOIL, right? N and N is N squared. N in negative 2, N in negative 10 gives me that negative 12. But then when I multiply negative 10 and negative 2, I get back to that plus 20. Okay? And again, if this one didn't jump out at you, you could have started with negative 20 and negative 1, because I know that multiplies to positive 20, but that would have given me negative 21. That didn't work. Then I would have gone to, right, well, I like to write the 1 first, and I'll show you why. For me, it helps my progression as far as mentally going through it. If I do negative 1 times the number, then I know I can go to 2, 3, 4, 5, and however much more I need to go until I find my winning numbers. Okay? But like I said, if it jumps right out at you, don't worry about filling in extra stuff. Don't take the time to do it. Only take the time and build into your factor sum table as many as you need to until you find your winning factors. The main thing here is just your signs. If you did yesterday's pretty easily, figuring out how do I get pluses and minuses with the different combinations, then that's the whole problem here, okay? All right, factor sum table. What do my factors need to equal? Multiply to be what? Cabela. 64. What's my sum need to equal? JC, what do my sum need to equal? 16. 16 center, okay? Everything's positive, so I know both my factors are going to be positive. If it jumps right out at you, great. If it doesn't, start at 1 and 64, 2 and 32, 3 wouldn't work. Does anybody know the quick way to know if a big number is divisible by 3? Yes. Yeah. 6 plus 4 is 10. 10 is not divisible by 3, so 64 won't be. You could do that if I gave you the number 1,332,832,000. You could, in about 5 seconds, tell me whether or not it was divisible by 3, because you just add up all those little numbers. And if that's divisible by 3, then your big number is. All right, so 3 doesn't work. Then you could go to 4. 5 wouldn't work. 6 wouldn't work. 7 wouldn't work. You could get to 8. 8 works. If it jumps right out at you, great, right? 8 and 8. 8 times 8 is 64. 8 plus 8 is 16. There's my winning numbers. Okay? My answer, binomial, single x plus 8. Single x plus 8. The reason I wanted to do this one as an example is how else could I write that? Yes. X plus 8 squared means the same thing. I don't care how you write it. I just want you to see both. So on a test, if it's a multiple choice and you see this as an option, you recognize that that is the same thing as writing it out twice. Okay? That's it. The only thing I ask is on your work that you show me that even if it jumps right out at you, I want you to fill in that factor sum table. So for every one of these next to it, I want to see your factor sum table, and I want to see your numbers written above F and S that you're shooting for. And then if you know it right away, fill in your winning numbers right away and then write your answer. If you don't know it right away, start with the process of 1 in the number, 2 in the number, 3 in the number, and divide it out and see if they come out even. Okay? All right. If anybody at home has any questions, shoot me an email. Hit load on your assignment. It'll open up in Cami, and make sure you show all your work to get credit.